It was the beginning of the 2000s, a bygone era filled with tech ingenuity and childhood nostalgia. I was playing on my old CRT TV when I got a gift from my dad, a thin CD jewel case with the cover of a smiling alien, telling me how you can throw grenades, possess aliens, and shoot with their guns. That was enough to create a spark in my eyes, and I went and popped the CD in my PS1. After the classic Sony intro that we have been blessed with, I now have been introduced to one of my favorite games of all time.
Hello. Follow me.
Oddworld Abe's Oddysee is a game developed by Oddworld inhabitants. It was released in 1997 for the PlayStation game console and computers running MS-DOS and Microsoft Windows. This game is about our hero named Abe, who belongs to an alien race called the Mudokons, who are enslaved and work at the Rupture Farm's meat processing factory. During his shift as a floor waxer, Abe encounters a cracked open door, peeking into the executive meeting of the leading aliens in the industry called the Gluckons of the Magog Cartel. They were losing money due to bringing the alien fauna to the edge of extinction, and were looking for a new and tasty product.
It was us.
The guards have been informed of Abe's snooping and are now on the lookout. Abe will need to escape and uncover the history of his people, pass the trials of Paramonia and Scribania, and unleash the Shrykul upon his enemies.
So, get me out of here.
After all the cinematics, we are now in control of Abe. The first thing you'll notice is that the game gives off a dark and gritty feeling. While traversing the factory, you see how Abe's friends are used as slaves and beaten senselessly. Massive pipes, conveyor belts full of butchered animals, and Mudokons cleaning blood splatters off the walls. There are many moments like these that immerse you into the game, with handcrafted backdrops and engaging sounds and ambient music, mixed with one of the best world building and art designs in a game. As you continue playing the game, you'll notice a contrast happening between comedy and reality, as slapstick and fart jokes are prevalent in this game, and the protagonist Abe is the comedic relief with his happy-go-lucky attitude and immense look. Yet, there are these serious problems happening in this odd world. As you are playing, the realization slowly creeps up on you. Comedy and reality are always competing for the player's attention.
Then I fell. Down a cliff.
This is one of the reasons for the age rating being 11 to 12 and up, as younger people will understand the importance of the messages, but the comedy will be more dominant in their minds. As a kid, I understood some of the implications of the advertisements that were used to mask the devious actions done by these corporations, but only to a small degree, while the slapstick was more prevalent in my mind. But during multiple recordings, I realized that comedy and reality aren't competing, they're actually synergizing. The comedy was there to make the dark messages have more impact compared to what they are, and enhancing the contrast that was being made, resulting in more memorable moments when all of the aforementioned elements start moving like cogs in a machine. From the artworks and the game itself, there's a lot to unwrap here, as there are some underlying themes, for example capitalism and consumerism. The Gluckans compete to be the most prevalent business aliens in the market, and you'll see many light-hearted advertisements of the endemic life of the planet being turned into cakes and pies, masking the almost total eradication of these animals, which transitions to the pollution of the environment and sucking the last drop of resources the land has. This can be seen by their presence in the areas and sacred temples of the animals, even slowly starting to seep in the mosaic lines, the holy caves of the Mudokons. As for the gameplay, R.E.L.I.V.E's Oddysee is an interesting mix of genres, specifically platformers and puzzlers. Since R.E.L.I.V.E himself has no way to fight back the opposing forces, he has to run away, sneak, or manipulate his enemies into dicing them, crushing them, making them fall, or just shooting their friends until they don't die from stress cardiomyopathy. The puzzle aspect is always intertwined with the platforming one. As the player, you try to compose the steps you are going to conduct, or react on a whim to not die from approaching obstacles. The levels always felt tight-knit. What this means is the margin for error is small. There's little wiggle room in the platforming dominant parts, which makes it much harder. But the feeling of evading these obstacles, be it traps, animals, or bullets, feels amazing when executed properly. But if the puzzle aspect is more prevalent, then there is more leeway to try and come up with multiple solutions. Though, many deaths may occur before that. A thing you will notice when starting the game is that it's comprised of rooms. There is no camera movement involved in this game, so crossing the border of the screen either up, down, left, or right will take you to the adjacent room, which is a continuation of the level and scenery. As for the movement, it is also grid-based, but since the animations are made very well, it's hard to see it while just starting the game. But you will instinctively learn how much space your character will move. It gives you a good perception of space in the game and how close you can come to certain traps and ledges to maximize the effectiveness of your movement. And the feeling of the movement is great. The animations have weight, and the transitional frames give a nice realistic feel. As mentioned, the margin for error is very small. It is the same for the running jump. For example, in some instances, a perfect run jump has to be done, and the game will only do a jump at the first half of the animation in that grid. If it's done in the second half, that's a no-go. And also taken in account some ports, depending which one you're playing, can be very fast, and there's always an input delay, which can really be a hassle. R.E.L.I.V.E will encounter various obstacles through his journey, and they will always change or be an addition to the already existing ones. The game always mixes them up to keep it fresh and interesting. Even by just making the platforming faster and a bit more precise gives you a nice rush. And by manipulating the objects you have at hand with a bit of imagination can keep the frequency of interest high and never make the game boring. That truly is a feat that is very underrated. The game will also introduce us to mechanics and items to counteract these new obstacles. Walls can be used as cover against shooting slugs, and foreground shadows can be used to stay unseen. As for the mentioned items, they are used to clear paths, kill enemies, and lure animals to escape safely. Though chanting near a security orb will make you lose the items, or worse. Another thing that is very underrated is the audio. The audio in R.E.L.I.V.E's Oddysee is amazing. Every character and animal were voiced and designed with great detail. As for the music, it's dynamic and very minimalistic, unraveling itself slowly depending on what is happening on the screen, changing its tone and tempo. For instance, walking around the stockyard levels, you can hear the subtle sounds of the area, the sizzling gaze of the motion sensors and faint ambient music. But then when you're hunted by the slugs, the music changes to a more action-oriented track. And when you're at a safe distance from the slug, the dynamic music settles but lingers. These little details made the game feel immersive, and even though this game is 25 years old, the audio still stands the test of time. As for the voice of our talkative mouth-stitched alien, you are tasked to talk to your fellow Mudokons using GameSpeak. It's one of the two unique features of the game. GameSpeak is a system of commands where R.E.L.I.V.E can talk/issue orders, as the goal of the game is to save your friends by communicating with them and leading them to the bird portals. The words R.E.L.I.V.E can use are hello, wait, follow me, and the useless angry button, or high whistle, fart, low whistle, and laugh. There is a second character you can use GameSpeak on, and that is the Slig. Together with the second unique feature, which is possession via chanting. Chanting is a very nifty tool in Abe's arsenal, if available to use, as the Gluckons are aware of that power and have dispersed security drones across the premises to zap any Mudokon who even tried. Sligs are very useful when possessed. Their main purpose is to shoot, and as for GameSpeak, you use the Slig to alert Mudokons to duck so you can shoot across the room. Slig GameSpeak is also used to unlock consoles in the late game. Another useful thing is commanding the Slogs, the two-legged good boys of this world, to do your bidding. You can command them to follow you and to attack, chomping at anything that might look semi-edible. Another thing that Abe can possess is chime locks. Chime locks are, as the name explains, locks, where you need to find the melody in that area to unlock the door they are connected to. You will first encounter them in the mosaic lines and later on in both animal temples. As for GameSpeak, the parts where it's lacking is that in this game you can't talk with more than one Mudokon, and you need to wait or get out of the screen to stop talking with one so you can call the other. Although they can also talk off screen, but that's a bug, and happens for example when one falls down in another area, but the game registers it as if he's still in the room. The tutorials in Abe's Oddysee are presented on these LED screens and touch panels scattered across the levels, introducing you to the game room by room. Albeit, the chant mechanic is explained after an hour or two of playing the game in the mosaic lines, which is a bit late. Though set aside the tutorials, even when you are introduced to the main menu, the first option that you will see won't be New Game, but GameSpeak, where the chant mechanic is introduced. Which I assume people did check out because of the placement, and since it has an odd name that could pique their interest. As for the save system, it doesn't save the exact moment where you are, but only the last checkpoint you were at, so all the saved Mudokons and progress after the checkpoint are at risk. This can be especially hard if you're trying to save all Mudokons, as some secret areas do require a few tries. To also dig a deeper hole, the save games are ordered alphabetically, so it's a bit of a hassle to find the save you want to load if you're a frequent game saver. This can be eliminated by just adding numbers to your save games, but it gets very messy. One way this can be fixed is via emulators, and using the save states of the program instead of in-game. I didn't do that as I wanted to try a fan-made port, so I was exposed to the vanilla suffering. When you're near the exit of the first Rupture Farms area, you will encounter a big sign telling you about the exact number of Mudokons located here, and that they will be killed when leaving this area. For new players, a good part of them will be running back checking on the missing Mudokons. It can be a bit frustrating until the player doesn't figure out that there are secret rooms and how to check on them. Most of them are hidden in the foreground and extra moving platform floors. The secrets aren't that hard to find once you figure it out, but they will make you hit every damn wall, crouch behind every damn foreground object to see if your character doesn't go down some secret shaft, or just jump into random openings to see if maybe there isn't a secret there. And in tandem with the save system, this becomes stressful and tedious rather than fun. To the game's defense, no secret areas need to be found to achieve a good ending, and the game never tells you that. But the game is very relaxed with its good ending criteria, only 50 of them is enough to get the good one. But a good chunk of the game, and the most fun and frustrating one, is comprised of finding all of the Mudokons and trying to save them. When I was younger, I didn't mind starting the game all over once I realized how I can check for secrets, and back in the day you didn't have that many games to play. Well, in the present it's a bit different. The Rupture Farm starting area did leave an impact on me, especially with the dark and looming intro that introduced us to it. knowing we're just a tiny speck of this giant factory. Even in this day and age, it's a spectacular sight to see. The other areas that you will encounter share the same great atmosphere and feel alive. For instance, the stockyards, the underbelly of the beast, gazing at towering structures in the shape of the Glucken's heads, seeking any intruder with their numerous lasers, and scrabs scavenging the ground, their hunger turning them into rabid guard dogs. It's a very refreshing feeling. We are the first time outside, and loud machinery isn't muddling our thoughts anymore. The light of the moon casts a heavy silhouette, and only a few campfires serve as a source of light. Traversing through the stockyards, you'll also encounter small hint flies that give you some info on the oncoming dangers that some of your people tried to avoid and unfortunately didn't make it. Once Abe arrives at the end of the stockyards, he will see that there is more to life than waxing floors. While falling down like a sack of potatoes and breaking that noggin of his, Big Face, as he's called, revives him and tells him that to be able to fight back, he needs to go to the temples of the sacred animals and face the trials of the lands of Scrabania and Paramonia. As for the Mosaic Lines, this is going to be your home base, where you will return once you've conquered the trials. They are the untouched lands of the Mudokons. You can see stones enveloped by their art and history. Mudokons can be seen meditating, finding their inner peace. And deeper in this land are the Mudokons you have saved, hoping to be joined by their loved ones. This is more of a transitional area with a few challenges, and it makes use of the second set of GameSpeak commands to mimic your fellow Mudokons. At the end of this area, we have an impossible obstacle, which can be solved by gaining the Shrikle power, the demigod of the Mudokons. But first, we need to face the trials of the two regions. Paramonia, a big woodland area with lots of Mudokon-made platforms and home of the Paramites. And Scrabania, the sanctuary of the Scrabs, a desert-like area with giant twisting cacti piercing rock and stone.
I had visions of Scrabs, safe in the wild. How they were before I was a child. Now they're cut, ground, and mashed into little cakes. Scrabs destroyed for profit's sake.
Scrabania is interesting, as it appears to be a wasteland, but there are animals and insects living here. The cacti aren't small, and bees, bats, and birds for some reason aren't that rare here. Now, both Scrabania and Paramonia have a similar composition, so I'm going to break them into parts to make them more easier to consume. The first part is the starting area till the temple. The second part is the temple and the challenge rooms. And the third part is the temple nest trial. In the first part, you will be introduced to the area with some new obstacles. And if this is your first region, after ringing the bell, you will be introduced to our two-horned honey-eating wide-eyed horse dog thing, Elam. You can talk to Elam like a Mudokon with GameSpeak, and once you mount it, the controls are almost the same as Abe's, except the jumps are enhanced. Scrabania's first part is arguably the harder one, as most of the time you're against flying bombs with very tight openings between them, while Sligs are trying to shoot you and your bipedal compatriot. Before the main part of the temple, we have a small interlude to accommodate us to the new environment. The Scrabanian Temple, made in honor of the sacred Scrabs. Built on top of a very tall and steep rock, many intricate carvings adorn the insides of this place. Piercing through the space of the temple are the massive beaks of the Scrabs, standing mighty above all, an homage to their power and warning to all who dare enter. As we enter the main area, we notice that there are 8 doors and a big locked one. The main thing that needs to be done is light the flintlocks in every room. Once they are lit, you cannot go back through the door you came from, but you need to find the other door in this area and open it via the chime lock melody. As for the scrabs, scrabs are large four-legged creatures with a human-like torso and a large beak as a head. Scrabs will attack anything on sight, even their own kin, as they are very territorial. Their aggressiveness can be exploited when there are more than two, as they will prioritize fighting each other than aim. Though they still are a formidable foe, even if there's one left. These rooms were for me the more difficult ones, since I went for 99 Mudokons and the deaths were a bit frequent in a few of them. Once all flintlocks have been lit, we are free to go to the final part, the Scribanian Templeness Trial. This section will be difficult for newcomers. At the beginning area you have two paths. One will lead you to explore and scout the area ahead, helping yourself to remember the difficult parts, and the second one leads you to it. A great part of the game, with tense tribal music, fast-paced platforming, with everything shrouded in pitch-black silhouettes, gave it a nice dramatic effect. It's a very satisfying feeling when you reach the end here. The boulders stop falling and silence ensues as you're confidently entering the door.
My test was completed. I expected to rest. Then the big face revealed the intent of my quest. The two scars together, on the back of each hand, they could shut down ruptured farms and restore the lost land.
Since Abe got his first tattoo, we're off to get the next one.
I had visions of paramites living in the wild, how they were before I was a child. Then I saw what we did, ignored their cries, cut 'em up for paramite pies.
Paramonia. A massive forest stands between you and a gigantic temple. This area has seen more Mudokon-made construction than the past one. There are many bridges, scaffoldings, and wind tubes made by them. From what I've read, Mudokons like to use sustainable resources, even though it's very primitive. Though I beg to differ. Even in Scribania we have seen gigantic monuments erected in honor of the Scrabs, and here we see massive wooden constructions which indicate this is far from primitive. The first part of Paramonia introduces you to order bombs. These bombs explode a few seconds after being activated. Except the order bombs, we also have another thing that probably activated more order bombs with his big ass feet. Our boy R.E.L.I.V.E, who joined us again in our adventure. The first part of Paramonia was solid. It introduced us to the aforementioned constructions and was much easier compared to the Scribanian one. It was short and sweet, with a bit of platforming, whistling, and exploding. The Paramonian Temple, made in honor of the Paramites, the sacred animal of this region. The counterpart to the tall Scrab, Paramites are small spider-like creatures with a six-fingered hand-like appendage serving as their head. They have no eyes just like the Scrabs and use vibrations and smell to sense the world around them. The Gluckons hunted them for their meat as they were incapable to breed in captivity. They're very friendly and social when they're one-on-one with Abe, as they only become aggressive if they are cornered or there are two or more of them. Though they're very easily distracted by a piece of meat. The main temple area consists of 6 doors where we need to light up the flintlocks and escape the rooms. After entering one of the challenge rooms, there was a big contrast in design. The aforementioned sturdy platforms and carvings were all covered in paramite silk, and thick giant webs as tall as the room obstructing the view of the cave. As for the Paramonian nest trial, it was the same as the Scrabanian one, and it had the same silhouettes which enhanced the dramatic effect, and in a mix with the music proved to be yet another banger like the last one. As I was finishing up and coming back to the mosaic lines, I was wondering, since these sacred animals are very important to the Mudokons as they are a part of their history, and even in the sequels there are even Mudokon tribes who worship them, and the Shrykull, a Mudokon demigod, is a mix of Scrab and Paramite, then shouldn't I be trying to preserve as many of these animals as possible? I assume one of the goals is to save them from extinction and stop the rampant industrialization. I didn't kill a massive amount of them, but still. Maybe it's about a means to an end, or a sacrifice for the greater good. Or maybe an example of ludonarrative dissonance. A bit selfish, as all Mudokons were saved and kept safe, while there are random scraps, for instance, still present at the stockyards, but let's assume they were saved after Rupture Farms shut down. Anyway, our friend Abe acquired his second tattoo and now has the power of the Shrykull.
With hand scars complete, the spirits took form. Now my chant had power. Rupture Farms should be warned.
The Shrykull is activated via chanting, and Abe turns into it while zapping everything that seemed even mildly threatening. The power is a one-and-done thing, but can be acquired at Shrykull bat portals, which are marked with a number in the middle of the portal that signifies how many Mudokons need to be saved at the same time. The next area is called the Stockyard Return. We're doing a reverse path to Rupture Farms. This area was also called the Free Fire Zone in the game's manual. The difficulty starts to ramp up from here, so there will be more stuff thrown at you at a faster pace. The challenges became more abundant, and all that is needed is just a little bit of patience. Once the last challenges of the stockyards have been overcome, we're going back to Rupture Farms. The Gluckons were informed of Abe's return, so they were prepared. Rupture Farms is now on high alert for Abe. This section consists of 4 zulags. The zulag name is derived from the Russian word gulag, a Soviet labor camp. The starting Rupture Farms area, now called Zulag 1, is just the beginning area without the part that leads you to the stockyards. Zulag 1 level-wise is pretty much the same, just some new puzzles have been added to solve. All the Mudokons that were saved have been replaced, and the secret rooms are much more easier compared to the ones they were at the beginning. Now, the next 2 zulags are like the temple hubs with the challenge rooms. One zulag has 3 challenge rooms, so having 2 compensates for the lack of quantity. These areas are utilizing the most they can. The task is a bit simpler, as there are no chimelock melodies to be found, so the only thing that needs to be done is save the Mudokons and activate the Rupture Farms flintlock. The deeper we go into the zulags, the harder the puzzles become, and the deeper we go, the closer we are to eradicating the Magog cartel. The difficulty is a great culmination of the game leading to the end. Interesting enough, the game divided the subsequent zulags by background color. Zulag 2 was a more stronger orange transitioning to red, while Zulag 3 had a change of atmosphere due to the color scheme being a dark blue and more pipes entangling our platforms. The shadows were more prominent due to the color implying that we are going deeper into Rupture Farms. And it had this brooding, menacing feeling that the machine is still going. Flames dancing in the background, meat falling from the upper levels, the cogs are still turning. There was this buildup of tension as we were slowly going even deeper to Zulag 4. All eyes were on Abe as he makes it to the ominous big button and...
I'd found the switch to kill most of the power, and there I was, in the final hour.
The final section is time-based, and you have 2 minutes to save the last Mudokon and unleash the Shrykull upon the cartel. The dark silhouettes really did give off a nice effect in the whole game, and especially at the final scene. There is a view of the factory where the last Mudokon is, a lonely little corner with no hope, scrubbing until the end and gazing at the never-ending system of pipes and platforms, and Abe cut the sadness and solitude with a simple hello. After dissipating the cartel in the air in the shape of ions, Abe is knocked out and hanged above a trash disposal unit. Seeing that he saved everyone, he asks himself,
But who's gonna rescue me?
The Mudokons start chanting and save Abe. Teleporting him to the mosaic lines and all the Mudokons he saved. And Abe managed to triumph over all the hardships and persevere till the end. Since I saved all Mudokons, I got the good ending with a little message. And also you get the option to play any cinematic you want afterwards. In general, the game was a treat, and visually we can see that the game is very old, and playing this in 1080p really doesn't do it justice. You have shadows created from foreground objects, which is a great example of background interaction. Railings and pipes starting in the background and ending in the foreground, rock or body parts going everywhere, giving an amazing feeling of depth and connection between the lanes. The animations are also top-notch, and I really wish there was a remaster rather than a remake of this game, so we could see these animations in full glory. Though, as of writing, I've seen someone working on a remaster for Exodus. All the areas in this game looked different, and every single one had its own charm and beauty, from the hot, arid and rocky Scribanian plateaus to the heavily wooded Paramonian lands. I found some posts and sites that have the rooms spliced together, and just looking at them we can see the full scale of it. It's interesting to see how our brain fills in the blanks and the spaces between rooms, giving us the illusion that there are other unseen parts. Nonetheless, it aged well, thanks to a large part that it was also a 2D platformer, and it still looks beautiful, despite its fidelity. Except the beautiful visuals and great audio, Oddworld had a good narrative. Abe as a hero was likable, even though his trope wasn't anything special, a messiah trying to save his people from the slavers. At the age when more cartoony mascots were being held at the forefront, Abe managed to rack up numbers and show that a small alien from a dark and gritty game with comedic undertones and subliminal messages can make it. With all of these elements, the game had no chance to fail, some unfortunate kinks here and there. Everything melded together almost perfectly. It was simple yet very effective, as the whole game was a cinematic experience that never lost focus on its building blocks. And one of them is that it's unique, and you will hear that word a lot when you read about this game, just spurting with its own identity. All in all, Oddworld Abe's Oddysee is very much recommended to any platformer enthusiasts and people who just want to experience a unique game that is 25 years old and stood the test of time. I do hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. This game and franchise will always have a special place in my heart, and I sure hope you have some vacancy for it in yours. I'd love to hear your thoughts and or experiences with this game. And as always, my name is Dark. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.